Understanding auto tone, auto contrast, auto color, and auto anything else in Photoshop. All right, Photoshop has a couple of things that are just auto. All right, and I'm sure you've seen other applications that have this auto thing, and it tries to it analyzes your image and it tries to make a best guess. All right, now under the image menu we have three different options. One is auto tone, one is auto contrast, and another one is auto color. All right, so what I've done is I've taken this image here of the seashore and it's come out of camera raw with absolutely no adjustments. And the reason why I did that is so we can actually see what Photoshop has to offer as far as auto adjustments are concerned. All right, so what I need you to do is pay attention to the histogram, because it's all about the histogram. All right, I need you to pay attention to the histogram, and in this image it comes out of here. We have some highlights that are spiking. All right, now I'm going to presume that it's the crest and the waves. All right, take a look down here in our highlights of our individual red, green, and blue channels, and you can see that we have a little bit of red spiking, almost twice as much green spiking going on, and then almost twice as much blue as we have green spiking going on. All right, so in other words, we've got some clipped information. We've got some information that has gone beyond or has set itself at 255, and it is pure white. We don't necessarily want to have our images to be clipping a lot of information. All right, so what we need to do is we need to somehow get these guys to be not clipped. All right, and then the shadow ends down here in this image. I would like to see this shadow information here stretched to the end. Again, stretch to the end, and again, stretch to the end. So we're going to see which one of these three auto features actually does it best for us. So I've created the individual images that we're going to apply these separate auto features to. So I'm going to go under the image menu and choose auto tone, and we can see visually that this image got a little more darker, a little more contrasty. And if we take a look at the histogram, we can see now that there's no spiking going on here, and we have nothing, all right, very little banging up against the wall over here, and almost nothing banging up the wall and nothing banging up the wall there. The shadow ends have been stretched down into here and just a little bit banging up there, but that's okay. And if I just did a Command Z to undo this, you'll see the histogram from before and now the histogram. You can see how things have been stretched out. Very good. All right, so now let's take a look at auto contrast. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose auto contrast, and you can see that that increased the contrast, duh, in a similar fashion that what happened to the auto tone. The difference being that when we did the auto contrast, all right, feature here, what happened is Photoshop looked at the RGB composite histogram, the combination of all three red, green, and blue channels, and then from that, all right, set the white point and set the black point to be within the dynamic range all the way across, 0 to 255. When we did the auto tone, Photoshop looked at the individual red, green, and blue channels and did the same thing, but separately, individually. And that's why there was just a slight difference in the way the histogram actually showed itself and moved around. Okay, now let's go to the last auto option under the image menu, and that's auto color. And the principle behind this is we're going to do the adjustment, the tone adjustment, but it's also going to include color when it makes its decision, when it's looking through the shadows, the highlights, and the midtones. So let's do this and go auto color. And I don't know if you noticed this, but take a look over here. First of all, if you look in the image, I think you can see that in the light areas and even in some of the neutrals here, or maybe not neutrals, but sand, it's a little bit warmer toned than the other images. All right, you see how it's warmer toned? And you can actually see that visually in the histogram, where the red histogram goes all the way in the highlights, all the way to the end, where the green and blues don't. All right, so what it did was added a little bit of red to the image. It looked at this image and it said, you know, it's a little bit cool. And where it made that decision is based on the amount of frickin' blue that's in this image that is supposed to be in this image. But it said, averaging things out, you've got more cooler tones going on than you have warmer, so I'm going to back off on the cooler tones a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit of the warm stuff to balance things out. All right, so in this image, I don't think the auto color worked as well as the auto contrast or the auto tone. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off these images, and I'm going to open up another image so we can actually see how this is actually going along. I like to test things out with a number of different images rather than just taking one and seeing this is how it works. So that being said, let me close this down and open up the next image. Okay, so here's the other image that I wanted to show you the auto tone, contrast, and color features with. All right, so let's just take a look at the histogram of this image. All right, so we've got some light stuff coming on over here, extremely light on the reflection of the glass doors and all that kind of stuff. But if you take a look at the histogram here, we'll see that we don't have a lot of the brightness being reflected in the image. Now, that doesn't mean that the information has to go all the way across, but you know, each histogram is going to be uniquely different based on the content of the image. All that being said, let's take a look at the highlights over here, and we can see that the green and blue highlights go all the way over to 255, but the reds do not. And then we can see that the reds have a little bit of stuff in the shadow end, the greens have a lot banged up against the wall, and the blues have quite a bit banged up against the wall. Let's see what happens when we do auto tone. Don't forget, let's just see, all right, auto tone. And you can see that auto tone went into each individual channel and spread things out across the board. All right, so I'm looking at this image and I'm looking at that image and I'm saying, you know, it's not too bad. That's not such a bad thing. It warmed up the image quite nicely. All right, might be a little bit too much, but anyways, this may have been a little bit too cold, where the wood in the chairs is coming out really nice and red, and this has a little bit of the tone and color that I believe was originally there. Let's try auto contrast. And auto contrast, all right, auto contrast is setting the lights and the darks, but it kind of left the colors alone. All right, you see how the difference. This one, auto contrast. This one here, out of camera raw with no adjustments. This one basically set the white point and the black point with the auto contrast. All right, color shifts, none. I don't see anything. It's just brighter, all right, but no color shifts. Over here in the auto tone, you can see that the reds have been increased. All right, you can see it right in the tile. Right? We don't have to be scientists or anything else to see that. There's more yellow in the ceiling and all that kind of stuff. All right? And then over here, we're going to do the auto color. Let's just see what auto color does. All right? We get something different every time. This image is showing more drastic differences than before. Auto color? I don't think so. All right? That's just horrible. All right, this is definitely not the color things. The color that I saw when I took the picture was somewhere between this and this. All right. So if I was to do this and make this adjustment, all right, I may take the auto tone, put it on, you know, a separate layer, and then pull back on the opacity of that second layer to about 50%. So I get some of the warmth from the auto tone, but for the most part, I'm going to deal with the contrast. So I might even do an auto contrast and then on another layer do the auto tone and take some of the warmth from the auto tone. All right. Now, one other thing I want to show you, there is another auto feature that I want to show you, and it's in the levels dialog box. Again, auto, it's based on certain things. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if it's actually going to show up. So I have to come under here and go down to this and bring up my auto levels guy here. And I'm just going to stretch it so it does cover up the previous images. There you go. And then I'm going to bring up the levels dialog box. And here's the histogram before. All right, you can see it. All right, and if I click auto levels, there's auto levels. Wow, is that ever horrible? I mean, it really brightened the image up so we can really see what's going on in here. But as far as I'm concerned, that's just way too much. But this is what auto did. And, you know, personally in this image, I don't think I like that very much. All right. Now, you want to see what the histogram looks like after that adjustment? Holy wackadoodles. Watch this. I'm going to click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up levels again to show you how much information has been stretched and pulled. All right. And we can see that this shadow stuff here was yanked and thrown into the midtones. You can just see the separation going on in there. All right, and like I say, I'm not 100% convinced that I like this. It looks a little flat to me, but personal preferences. All right, so that's it with the auto adjustments. And in the next video, we're going to get into doing some color correction.